And speaking of romance, we come 9 years back, so we're moving the clock back from 2011 to 2002. A play called Machine. Now, this is a very, very atypical Tan Tarn play. It is not overtly political. It has no characters speaking in double entendre. It's a play about sex. And it's a play about, for want of a better word for the younger generation, I don't know whether you use this term anymore, BGR, right? Boy-girl relationship. That's how old I am, I still use BGR, okay? Now I'm just going to show you a clip. I'm going to show you a clip from one of the play itself, right? You may recognize the actors who are in it. You may recognize that to be Mr. Low Kee Hong and Center 42's Executive Director, Casey Lin. Now, I'm just going to read you a couple of reviews. Writing for the Straits Times then in 2002, Suhaila Sulaiman said, "There's no high drama or action in Machine. Its brutality does not stream in naked through rapes and murders, but comes sheathed in the mating games, the civilized conversations and repartees that men and women play. Tan's sensitivity and genius is obvious throughout. The dialogue is light but loaded. In the exchanges, there are just the right doses of surprise to complement, of feigned ignorance to encourage, of coyness to intrigue, as both the man and woman maneuvers expertly towards the ultimate goal, the bed, after which the relationship ceases to be." Matthew Lyon from the Inkpot described it as, quote, "an intellectually impressive and thought-provoking play that refused to take the easy options of cheap emotions or abstract plotting, and succeeded in taking itself seriously and taking the audience along for the ride." Tan Tarn, can you tell me, where is Machine happening? Is it happening in Singapore? Where is this space where people come in to fix your appliance and they stay? Now, the only other narrative that I know of where burly men come and fix your appliances is not legitimate theatre. Brian Tan sitting there has a theory that this script Machine was originally meant as a porn script where burly men come in and says, "I understand that your machine is spoiled. Ooh, are you going to fix my washing machine?" So it's, okay, it's intriguing, right? Person comes in, people subject themselves willingly to this kind of codependence, as you can see just now, right? The character Rex says this is a business relationship. Anytime you want to call it quits, you can call it quits, but Heng stays. Yeah, so it's about that codependence. But really, where is this happening? Bukit Batok, Holland Village?
I don't know. Actually, I never thought of that. Yeah.
You have to have a naturalistic play or plays all very important. This one breaks all the rules. It's naturalistic. But then when the poor actors, okay, I need the backstory. Where is this happening? How old are they? Where is this? They got no answers, the poor actors, right? Tell.
Yeah.
Playwright.
So I want to examine the relationships, modern relationships, postmodern, I guess, in the abstract. So wanted to therefore not ground them in the past, because in these relationships, the past and the history is actually incidental to what's happening, right? So the machine doesn't really care where, I suppose, the clothes come from, right? It just washes it and then it comes out. So you're making me intellectualize something which I don't really thought about. So that's not an answer, yeah. No, but I just want to say that I learned the art of acting with the hands. I discovered, I'm not an actor, but I learned the art of acting with the hands, right, from Casey. Right? And of not moving, right? you notice that, and when I watch him, and even when I imagine, recall him on stage, right? I recall your hand, right? You're very deliberate, laden, like it doesn't move, and it's so weighted, and there you are again, right? It's amazing. It's like, wow, and that is the story untold, you see. I feel that each one of them has one aspect of that, right? And the skittishness of Rex, right, is the opposite of you, right? But so you can play in all sorts of variations, all sorts of colors, and the whole spectra, right? But it's the same, yeah.
Well, apparently they had to split because they had no backstory that they could rely on. But again, you are in very good company, because a play like Machine is actually very close in its dramaturgy. I don't know whether you've heard of this play by Harold Pinter called Homecoming, where somebody comes back from the past and everything is untold. There's a latent history, but nobody dares to say anything about it, because once they talk about it, and then there's violence, right? Sexual violence, gender violence, but it is that kind of unsaid, untold, but yet it wreaks a lot of havoc that's happening there. But Harold Pinter locates it in London, in England. It's not in London, in England, and actually has so I think a lot of the aesthetics, and again, I'm a researcher, so I'm kind of place the kind of influences. So I'm not saying that you are immediately influenced by Alan Bennett, but there's a particular genre, and also that the Pinteresque, that's the term they use, way in which this, a lot of unsaid, a lot of what it does, it unsettles the audience, because the audience doesn't have dramatic irony. Most of the time, the audience knows everything, and it's the people on stage that are the fools. But what you do, and what Pinter does, is make y'all the fools, because you don't know what's happening. But you're suspended, and then the characters on stage know what's happening. And they will slowly reveal to you what you need to know, and then pull the rug from under your feet. So that is the kind of dramaturgy that Pinter does. So I think Machine does that, right? So I've just intellectualized your play and call it Pinteresque. Quote Robin Loon, 742, okay? So, but it is true, I think the strength of this particular piece really is about what is unsaid and what is unable to be said, and how people just give in to it. And the four characters in there, I mean, it's just bizarre how they would allow themselves to go through the process of being dominated. So, talk me through these four characters. Did you conceive them as, how did you conceive them?
So I wanted to have very contrasting characters, right? Yet, and of course the whole point is that they all end up being roughly in the same condition. So therefore I chose very weepy one, a very strong one, and for both, then a very quiet one and a very sort of voluble one for the guys. So that was a device. I guess, I mean, it's, even though it's very unreal in some aspects, right? It's actually based on some people I know. Yeah.
Oh my
no, not specific people, a montage of people I know.
A montage of people you know. Yeah. You're very interesting friends.
People who have difficulty with relationships.
I know a few of those too.
And in this time of plenty, right, of choice, right, that's what happened. Z Wong was in the revival together with Machine, and it's quite interesting that when Jeremiah first directed, Jeremiah did it twice, right? When he first directed it, right, with Casey, Ki Hong, Karen, and Janice, right, all very strong in themselves, very anchored characters, right? He sort of made them strong, different nights, different people are actually the manipulators, right? The game controllers, yeah. And that's very interesting. And in Z production, actually, the women actually, you do not know in the end, right to the last moment, until you were after the curtain, right? Who is actually controlling? whose game was it, right? Or was it's an internal game nobody has control? Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing. I think that maybe it's a machine. It just spins that nobody actually has control. Sometimes you are thinking, yeah, the jeans is he's ahead of the pants, of the jacket's ahead of the underwear, but maybe all in the same cycle.
One last question. Why did you choose to set it? I think this is one of the two plays that you've set it in a domestic environment. Did you feel that setting it in a home, in a domestic environment, was that a deliberate choice? Or what was behind that? Or did you just feel that that was the place for it?
Well, BGR happens in very domestic situations, right? And this sense of, I feel that the women actually were the drifters, even though they were not itinerant, but they were the drifters, right? The people who were there, the people who stayed behind are the drifters.
So yes.
No, sometimes, most of the time you write, you can't answer all the questions. Then after that you try to
that's why
intellectualize.
Pesky interviewers asking you the questions, right? By the way, I've just brought back BGR. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Back 4 years before 1998, First Emperor's Last Days. Just again show you a clip. By the way, this is another play that has 4 characters, right? So again, 4 characters trapped in a place that they can't get out of and doing certain things. So if you see, there's certain kind of, I'll talk about it a little bit more, there's a kind of parallel between here, the 4 people trapped here, and the 4 people trapped in the machine, yeah? But this is a slightly different premise.
He united the nation and made it great as it never was. He is the first.
So, the play, the premise is 4 people have been tasked to do what? To write about?
Biography of the
Of Qin Shi Huang. So, and the parallels between, again, when I brought up Pinter, they get instructions of what to do or what to write through a dumbwaiter, right? And those of you who know Pinter know that Pinter wrote a play where 2 people, they're basically thieves, right, robbers, they're trapped and they get messages sent to them via a dumbwaiter. So, not saying that, again, the Pinteresque the elements are there in terms of what Tan Hao is writing, in terms of the kind of the thrust of what is here. Now, I just wanted to maybe talk about, this is the play that traveled to Hong Kong, yeah, and was translated and performed entirely in Cantonese. You were there to see it. Was it very different from this?
Yeah, I think that the staging is less sort of epic, I think. I don't know. It feels different. It didn't have that. What Ong Keng Sen did was actually the Victoria Theatre, right?
Yes.
So he ran a very long wire down.
Yes.
Then every time the instructions come, right, it takes so long.
So
to come down.
there was
right?
actually a track.
Yeah. So
The dumbwaiter actually came.
Yeah. What I remember from there were 2 things that actually I don't understand Cantonese very well, right? So I don't understand a lot of the text because it was translated to classical style Cantonese, right? So it's very literary. In fact, this text is the words tend to be a bit literary, right? And it just sounded so marvelous, like sing song. It's like, so there's a quality to it which I seldom see there's a cadence to the language, right, which we don't often see in Singapore, right, because of the very sort of deep connection with the language, right. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing, they all thought it was about this Deng Xiaoping. Because everybody thought it was about Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, right? So they all thought it's about Deng Xiaoping. Because Deng Xiaoping was 1998, right? Around that time, he was still the dominant force leader, even though he didn't have any formal positions. Yeah.
The use of the multimedia, which a lot of people have, most people found it distracting, and
He didn't have that. They didn't have that in the Hong Kong production. So Hong Kong production followed the script very faithfully.
Right.
And even the end scene where there's a structure and so forth, actually followed the script very faithfully. Yeah.
How did you feel about Paul's multimedia, the multimedia in this one?
I'm a bit ambivalent about that because I feel that unlike in field writing, like sometimes the multimedia distracts from what's happening on stage. Yeah. Sometimes you need to see the scene in its entirety, right? I felt that it was slightly maybe sometimes didn't work quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I understand the motive that Keng Sen had, right? Because it's under surveillance.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe
I think the scale of VT had something to do with it because it was so big and you had 4 characters, so the set was really quite big. So I think he needed this particular frame, but I think the frame just dwarfed the characters and made it a little bit less biting than it could have been. We moved
I didn't dare to watch the opening night.
You
I
didn't
was so
dare?
nervous, yeah. So I walked around both keys throughout the whole performance.
Why were you nervous?
Well, I don't know whether it will work or not.
Right.
And, it's an allegory. Would it get it? Keng Sen's always very naughty. I told you the story. Always 2 weeks before the play. Oh, it's very, very fun. 2 weeks before. Tan, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, then so this and we had done that for Leader of Soul. We had done that for Undercover. And gone back to the play and sort of look at the parts where we can, I suppose the word is self-censor, right? But this is allegory. You either don't do it or you do it, right? So it's not possible. And then the minister was coming and stuff. Apparently he said, oh, he liked it. So,
There you go.
but George, you lie. So maybe, you know.
You heard it here first, George Yola, okay? Alright. 6 of the Best, 1996. Here's a clip.
So where's your booth? Your accent, soybean, looks
Right.
fine to me, thanks.
This is one of the very few plays that you've written that has a lot of swearing in it. I take it that's deliberate. Now, for those of you who don't know, the play is a response, Tanha's response to the Michael Fay caning incident. And the play exposes certain racial tensions, just to put it mildly. Now, the thing is that I find it gratifying, or maybe, conversely, also very sad, that a play about racial tensions in 1996 is still resonating now in the US, everywhere else, especially, right now, the recent shooting, in the US, you have these issues that are still bubbling. Now, I just wanted to kind of get your response on that, the whole racial tensions that was underlying all this stuff. For those of you who don't know, the scenes of The Office, where you have a cosmopolitan office workers, right, people from different countries working together, and then they were discussing, like, you heard that, did he do it, did he not do it, did he spray the car, did he not spray the car, and that became a catalyst for a lot of racial tension. And spliced in between that is a series of monologues by the Flogger, played by K. Rajagopal, who talks about, that the corporal punishment, but about the cane, about how flesh, very graphic descriptions of how, blood is drawn and how flesh is torn from the buttocks and everything, and so it's quite. So again, not your usual, even though when you read it, it reads quite naturalistically, but you can see from the staging, Ong Keng Sen has put his hands on it and changed it into something else. Now, your response to it right now, the Michael Fay incident, you've said in many interviews that you've never considered yourself a racist, but then when this thing came about, you started to ask yourself questions about your views on race.
Yeah.
How has that changed? Is it still happening?
Yeah, I think that, okay, I don't know whether the original sin is racism, right? But I think by the time you're 6, 7 years old, you actually start to see the world through very colored eyes, not just racism, but in-group, out-group, our people and the other, right? And so I had very mixed feelings because I was in the Straits Times and I was covering a lot of Michael Fay. I was very mixed feelings about it and questioning myself whether am I is my reaction rational or is it just racist, right? Yeah, so the point that I want to make is that even the most liberal people has to fight that racist thing.
Prejudice.
Yeah, and so it happened in one day. They started very charming in this ad agency. At the end of the day, they're all the wounds come out. It's like the flogger has sort of cut through the skin, right, of the metaphorical skin of, I suppose, civilized polite behavior into something very, very sort of primal. And I suppose if you don't acknowledge that, then you cannot overcome. So I think the process for me is to acknowledge that.
Okay. Well, I think that's again something that I hope will continue for prospective artists or people who want to write plays. Respond through your art. Write something, respond through it, and use your art to speak. Right? I think that's one of the things that I think I've noticed from a lot of what, it started off as a question, right? You ask me why racist, and then you respond to it through your art. So at this particular point, segueing into questioning, we're just going to break for a while to take any questions. Anybody? There are microphones behind, you can speak out. Anything you want to ask, Tan Tarn? I'll open it up for questions at the end of the interview, but if there's anything you want to ask right now, or just tired of this, yes please.
So quite a lot of your plays are non-naturalistic in a sense. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you think of the new generation of playwrights who are working a lot more in realism, who are working with relationships and talking about, say, maybe this, what does it mean to be in Singapore and dealing with such issues. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
New generation, right? Because
yes, the most recent one.
I'm the old generation.
Just O, not the O.
I must confess that I suppose you mean Faith Ng, Tan. I must confess I haven't seen very much of their work. Partly because it's so hard to get tickets, right? I mean, normal, the minute it's out, you don't buy new additional tickets, is sold out. So I haven't seen very much. But I think that, I suppose, it seems to me they are in a way less angry. They are angry in a more sort of urbane way. Right?
Urbane indeed.
Whereas we were really angry before. Robin, myself, Russell, Eleanor, Ovidia, really angry, upset. Right? But I don't know, it seems to me from just reading the reviews that, but I suppose that's Singapore, the changing Singapore situation, right? Yeah. And I suppose maybe the young people will read the older works and say, why this guy is ranting on about, it's a big deal, cool man, or whatever they say. I don't know what to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Sorry, could you speak into the mic because we're capturing this for video so we can hear you. Thank you.
Can I ask, would you agree that the current data now is very diluted by commercialization?
No, I think that it's just a greater range. So you can have your very commercialized theatre, but you have your very cutting edge stuff. I mean, you go to TNS, you go to the originals, you go to drama pops, it's cutting edge stuff. If you have seen, for example, the work called, I forget the work, what's the work where they have this democracy thing? The Lesson. It's really cutting edge. It is, in fact, it's cutting edge not only in content, it's cutting edge in form. And I feel that new form is beyond foreign theatre was being invented. So but you can watch a Lion King, and of course then there are like the masterful people who at Wild Rice who mix the commercialism easily accessible but very difficult conceptually, right? Yeah, and then there's some really esoteric stuff, which so there's just more range in choice.
Just going to move on.
And commercial stuff is good, you know, because they open the world to theatre, right? To get people into a theatre, any theatre, is a big step really. Then they will say maybe, okay, right, I will see something else. But if they don't even consider, so.
We move back to what I think, in my opinion, is your best play. This is a play called Undercover,